we say hello to legendary sports talk radio host, the hosts of the Oh the Pain podcast. It's our guy, Joe Benigno. Joe, how we feeling as the Jet offseason is fully underway?
Jake, how are you? Yeah, I'm feeling good. I mean, I got to tell you, outside of the losing Nick Folk, which I didn't understand, I'm down with everything Darren Mucci has done. I got to tell you, everything he's done. We can start with franchising Bryce Hall. I think Bryce had to come back. I'd like to see them give him a long-term contract. We'll see if they do that or not. But at least we know we have him for another year. I like the trade he made with Jermaine Johnson, who I thought was an absolute stiff, and he was always hurt. And you got this guy Sweat to be a nose tackle in the middle of the defensive line. Johnson goes back to Salah in Tennessee. He really addressed, as we saw, the defense with all the different moves. The defense was not a professional defense last year. And we saw all the moves that he made the other day, starting with Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joseph Asai, really addressed the defensive line. He brings back Demario Davis, even though he's 37 years old. The Demario Davis moves reminds me a lot of Bart Scott when Rex Ryan brought him in back in 2009 when he was waiting at his house to sign him. Because to me, Demario is all about leadership. That's what he is. At 37 years old, I guess he still has something in the tank. But I think he was brought in here to be a leader for that defense. I thought that was a smart move too. Dane Belton as well, former Giant, brings him in. And even Geno. You could say whatever you want about Geno, and everybody, Geno Smith. Geno Smith's not the same guy he was when he was with the Jets. And we always know he's had ability. He had some very good years in Seattle. I understand he didn't have a good year last year with the Raiders, but the Raiders stunk. He still threw 19 touchdown passes. No, he threw like 17 interceptions. He was behind a bad offensive line. Geno could throw the football. There's no question. You give him time, he could put it out there. And I said this to some of my Jet brethren who, oh, my God, Geno. Come on. What did you think you were getting, Joe Montana? What were you getting? What were you getting? Okay, you want to say Kirk Cousins. Look, they weren't paying $80 million for Malik Willis because who knows what he really is. You're not paying that kind of money for a guy that's really an unproven guy as a starter. Have no idea. Tua Tagovailoa, do you really want him? We all know about the concussion problems. He's terrible in cold weather. Let him go to Atlanta. I wanted no part of Kyler Murray. The guy, instead of looking at game film, he's playing, Mortal Kombat or whatever he's doing. I don't want this guy. So Geno's a stopgap. So what's the problem with that? We're not going to the playoffs this year. We're not winning the Super Bowl this year. He's not our quarterback of the future. And I look at it this way, too. I really do, Jake. He's got something to prove in New York. Geno comes to New York with a big chip on his shoulder.
That's what he said when he gave an interview to Josina Anderson. He says, I have unfinished business there. I want redemption for what happened, basically.
Yeah. And so I think it's a smart move by Mucci, to be very honest with you. And we've seen many 35-year-old quarterbacks who played their best football at 35 and older. So I'm not upset with it. Like I said, my only negative, and I love what Darren Mucci has done here. I love it. I love the fact that Frank Reich is our offensive coordinator. I would have liked to see Wink Martindale as the D coordinator, but it looks like we're almost going to have, and I don't want to compare, but please don't get me wrong. The 85 Bears, but you look at the 85 Bears, Mike Ditka ran the offense, Buddy Ryan ran the defense, and that's what you're going to see here. Frank Reich is going to be the offensive coach. He's going to run the offense, and Glenn is going to run the defense. So let's see how that plays out. I'm good, bro. I said outside of letting Folk go, I thought that was why we did that. Haven't we learned yet with kickers? We had Folk before, we let him go. Then we had Jason Myers. We let him go. He almost was the MVP in the Super Bowl this past year. And now we need a kicker again. So I'm upset by that. But outside of that move, everything else that Darren Mucci has done, I'm completely on board with.
So I agree with you. And the only thing I'd say on Folk, I wanted him back. I think every Jet fan did. Chris Banjo was such a great special teams coach this past year. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because I was critical when they released Thomas Morstead a year ago and they found Austin McNamara out of nowhere, and he was great. So I'll give him a chance to try and find a real kicker. They signed Cade York yesterday, Joe, but he's going to probably be a guy that's competing for the kicking job with someone else he hasn't kicked in the NFL in the last 2 years. So we'll see what they do there. But staying with Geno, I'm with you. Look, he wasn't my first choice. I preferred Kirk Cousins. Whether it's true or not, Cousins didn't want to be a Jet, and the Jets apparently they didn't want him. That's fine. Derek Carr, I was open to him, but he didn't play last year. You worry how much he has left. I'm fine with Geno because the best part about acquiring Geno is you're paying him $3 million. So if it doesn't work out, well, you're drafting a quarterback in 2027 anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I look, and like I said, it makes sense. He's got something to prove. I don't think there's any question about that. And he can still throw the ball. And our offense, look, the defense was not a professional defense by the end of the year. And obviously, Brady Cook was not an NFL quarterback. But you look at the offense that we have. We got a solid offensive line, all right? I know Vera Tucker's gone. He goes to the Patriots, of course. But you couldn't bring him back. He gets hurt all the time. I had no issue there. Simpson went to the Ravens. They're going to have to get a guy at guard.
They signed Dylan Parham yesterday, who's good. He's like the only good Raiders offensive lineman, so he's the new left guard.
Okay, I didn't see that. Good. There you go. So, you got the offensive line intact, the bookend tackles. You got Myers, you got Tippmann. Now this guy, what's his name again? This guy that brought in?
Dylan Parham. Yeah, he could play left and right guard, and it also gives them some flexibility. If they want to take someone in the draft, they now have the flexibility to move Tippmann back to center. You can move one of these guys to left or right guard. So now they have a solid 5 guys in place going into the draft, which is nice.
Right. And now you got two, you got Garrett Wilson coming back. You got Brees coming back. You got Allen coming back from the injury. You got the kid Mitchell on the outside. I guess Mitchie, I don't know if he's coming back or not. I guess he's still a free agent.
Mitchie signed with the Panthers, so he's
okay,
out.
So he's gone. But you got Mitchell here, who really showed some promise last year. They got him in a steal in the steal of a trade for Sauce Gardner. Yeah, I mean, the offense has they got some firepower a little bit there. Maybe you draft a wide receiver. I know a lot of the mock drafts have them taking this kid. What's the kid from Arizona State at 16? I don't know if I would do that. I think I want I think in the first round, I want 2 defensive players. That's what I want in the first round. Yeah. I do.
Well, it seems like they're set up, Joe, with pick 2 being one of the pass rushers, whether it's Arvell Reese or it's Ruben Bain or it's David Bailey. And then after that, though, like you look at the going rate for receivers and free agency, you have like slightly better than average receivers making $20-something million. I think they're going to draft a receiver pretty early unless they trade for Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jaguars.
Right. Well, which would not be bad. I know he had kind of a down year last year, but I do like him. Look, I think you need to take a receiver. I'm with you 100%. I don't know if I take it at 16, though. Maybe you can still take it at 33. And I think you got to draft a quarterback, bro. I think it's somewhere. And now I'm not that I love this guy, but I'm big. See, here's why I don't like Simpson, because I would not take Simpson. If you could take if you get him, if he's sitting there, let's say even at 33 or certainly at 44, then I would take him. If Simpson's there at 44, okay, I'll take him with a 2nd round pick. At 16, I look at this guy and I say, wait a minute, this guy started 15 games in college. I'm leery of that. You know what I mean? I want a guy take a shot at a guy like Carson Beck. He started 42 games in college. He was at winning programs, Georgia, the year he had at Miami last year, going all the way to the championship game. He's a big, tall guy. I know Reich likes those big quarterbacks. I would take a shot at him. I'd even take a shot at the Penn State quarterback later on, and if he's there, let's say in the 4th round, or maybe you could trade up if he's there in the 3rd round if you want to take a shot at him. I don't know if I take him in the 2nd round. But, so that's my feeling. I guess it wouldn't be terrible if you took this kid, the wide receiver at 16, but because they really have addressed the defense so much here in free agency. But we'll see. Let's see how it plays out.
Do you have a preference for the backup quarterback, Joe? It felt like Carson Wentz was the favorite. Then new reports came out that he's no longer seemingly an option. I think it could be Tyrod again.
Is he completely – he hasn't signed with anybody. But is he completely not an option? Do we know that?
It felt like he was going to be signed, and then the Athletic said, well, not so fast. He's got other options. It doesn't feel like that's happening now. I mean, for me, they have like basically 2 approaches. You could try and trade for like an unknown guy who needs a chance, maybe like a guy like Will Levis, for example, you do something like that, or Spencer Rattler, who could be available, or you bring back, Tyrod, or you trade for Andy Dalton, who's expendable now in Carolina, who knows Frank Reich. It feels like it's either like the young, unproven guy who's the backup with maybe some upside, or they just try and get like a consistent veteran who is competent.
It's too bad Tyrod gets hurt all the time because I like him a lot as a backup. That's the problem. I mean, I think he would have signed him already to be the backup if it wasn't for the constant injury. He plays 2 games and he's hurt. So that's the negative on him. I don't want to expend too much. I mean, look, I like Andy Dalton. I do like him. Of all the names you threw out there, he's probably the one I like the best. I guess you'd have to trade for him. I don't know. Look, they just got what they trade, a 6th rounder in the Geno deal, and they got a 7th rounder back.
Yeah, that's what it would be for Dalton.
Right. Something like that. I could see getting him.
All in all, I think it's been a really positive 72, 96 hours for the New York Jets, and I'm happy with most of the outcomes so far of free agency.
So I just saw this breaking news, not Jet related, but it involves a former Jet. Bryce Huff is retiring from football, 27 years old.
Wow.
Played 6 years total in the league. He apparently just announced his retirement. So a little breaking news right here at the start of our stream, DT. Bryce Huff, who was one of the better personnel and coaching moves that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh were a part of. They found him as a UDFA, developed him into an elite pass rusher. He got paid by the Eagles, didn't work out there, but he's retiring at 27 years old. That's crazy.
Yeah, the ascension of Bryce Huff with the New York Jets and then the fall off of Bryce Huff is certainly going to be studied as an edge rusher. And it felt like when he paired back up with Saleh and San Fran, it was okay at some points, but damn, man, that's crazy. 27 years old. I immediately think, mental health, physical health. Does he have like injury history that we're not aware of? So very interesting that he's retiring at 27. I felt like, he was always a talented player, but it is interesting how things always play out for certain players. Like they just don't work in certain schemes and their production falls off a cliff. But you would think there'd be a market for Bryce Huff too, right? At only 27 years old. So just a very strange set of circumstances. And regardless, I hope the best for him. And maybe he eventually finds his way back to football. But yeah, this is very alarming.
Yeah, I'm very surprised to see this, but wish Bryce Huff all the best. All right, as far as some Jets news, a lot happening with them. We have not gotten the backup QB signing to this point, so we await that. But let's kind of reset the week and where things stand, DT. Give me your assessment on where the Jets are at, the moves that have intrigued you, and just kind of your general feel for the franchise right now.
Yeah, I think Aaron Glenn has done a solid job in collaboration, obviously, with Demario in terms of turning this defense around on paper. Obviously, they said they wanted to add a lot of veteran leadership. You go down the list, Minkah Fitzpatrick, David Onyemata, Demario Davis. That's a guy at every level of your defense now that's, 29, 33, and 36. For all three of those guys, but that gives you a veteran leader at each level of your defense, somebody that Onyemata and Demario Davis have familiarity with Aaron Glenn before. So that's a really good positive. I like that he pulled from the Saints tree with those two as opposed to going the cliche Detroit Lions route. So I do like those two signings specifically from a veteran leadership perspective. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, it's a really good trade. It's the same 7th round pick that they got back from Brownlee. So they basically turned a 6th round pick into Brownlee and Minkah Fitzpatrick. So there's news that Minkah might play nickel, or that's what he said in his introductory press conference. Perhaps there's no exact, role definitively laid out for Minkah yet, but he could be in the slot. He could be a free safety for us. So I really like all three additions at defense. And then the two edge guys, I'm really intrigued by Enagbare, more so than Osai, but I think they're going to be tough physical players for this defensive front that, Will McDonald, is 237, 240 pounds. These guys are 258 and 263, Enagbare being 258, I believe. So they're going to give you a physicality, a run defense floor for sure on this defensive front. And I'm really excited about Nahshon Wright as a depth corner and also Dane Belton. I think he's just going to be a really core special teams player and maybe the third safety behind Malachi Moore. But Dane Belton is definitely going to be an improvement on special teams, which is already a really good unit. And we haven't talked about the offensive side yet. Dylan Parham, I think, is going to be an upgrade from John Simpson. I don't know definitively yet. I want to watch the tape of him and Geno, which is really convenient. You just have to watch one set of games instead of two. But I think he can be an upgrade over John Simpson. He graded out better. He's younger. He has more upside, and he's on a much more cost-effective deal at $7.5 million guaranteed, all of it up front. So I think they're doing a really good job increasing and improving on the margins, right? So like maybe 10%, 12%, 15% better at the end of the day. But over a 17-week season, if you're 10% better, that's 1.7 games better. Maybe you're a 5-win team at this point. Well, once we get into the draft, you could become a 6-win team potentially. And now you're doubling your win total and going from there. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I really like a lot of these additions. And my favorite's got to be Demario, dude. I'm getting a 56 jersey no matter what. And if he's not in number 56, I will be very, very surprised.
It's open again for him because Quincy's no longer here. Demario Davis was added to the roster. He's speaking right now. Here's Demario Davis talking about being a Jet again.
Why we came back to New York was a multitude of reasons. Number one, we go where we feel like we're being sent to. Number two, I believe in so much of what's being built here under the leadership of Aaron Glenn, a.k.a. AG. And for myself as a leader, this was the mission that I was excited to step into. As you didn't, I never realized that, leaving here, I felt like the mission personally was a little incomplete, but getting a chance to step back into and be a part of what's being built, I'm super excited about that. I think there's a ton of great things on the horizons for this organization. You can already see glimpses of what's being built as the moves that have happened early in the offseason, with so much more on the horizon. So I'm really excited to be a part of that. And this is my third time around, but as I come back this time, I come back very different. I come back very purposeful, very clear on vision, and very clear about who I am. And this wasn't a happenstance situation. This was a choice, very specific. Knowing who I am and who I'm called to be, I know exactly what I'm stepping into this time around.
Here's more from Demario Davis.
First, I just want to start with how grateful I am to be back, how grateful I am to this organization, how grateful I am to the Johnson family for thinking so highly of me to bring me back. I know what it means to be a part of the Jets family. I know what it means to wear these colors, to wear this brand, and it means a lot coming back.
Breaking sports news on the Jake Asman Show.
Demario Davis has already been named a captain for the New York Jets in 2026.
Yeah, it feels like between him and Harrison Phillips, the way that we're conducting ourselves as adults, we'll call it, is pretty refreshing. It's a really nice feeling to have. It feels like there's a maturity threshold that is absolutely necessary in New York to play for the Jets. And some people have it, some people don't, right? Garrett Wilson has it, and you immediately understood that. Just comparatively, maybe a guy like Bryce Huff does not have that maturity threshold to play in New York. Maybe he does, and hopefully a long-term contract can help ease that in a little bit. But I love Demario Davis, man. I'm so excited. And if you ever do a 56 raffle, I will be sure to put in all of my dollars, and I'll be 1 for 3 on the jerseys I win on the Jake Asman Show.